There we go. It'll be available on our YouTube channel with the link from our website after it is over. You can feel free to share that with anyone who you think may be interested. Zoom has a comment section for this meeting as well. So it's in the chat. It looks like a little chat bubble. It's down on mine, it's down at the bottom of my screen. If you have any questions of our subject matter expert today, you can post those questions in our comments section. And if we have enough time, which I think we will, we'll get those answered for you at the end of the presentation. So here we go. You all know me, I am Kimberly Scalero, and our subject matter expert today is our web designer, Dallas Abramson. Want to give him a wave, Dallas, so they can put a face with the name. Dallas is a Baltimore native. He's a Towson University graduate. He has over a decade of experience in digital marketing and web design. Dallas has done design for businesses across all verticals in the private and public sector, and he has been here with us at Summit for 2 years. So Dallas, let's talk about websites, and where do we start?
Hi, Kim. Thank you. Great to see everybody here today. So today we'll be covering the history of the web, the evolution of web design, and the key methods to keeping your website fresh and engaging. So let's start with some of the basics. What is a website? A website is the digital equivalent of your organization. It represents and speaks on behalf of your business, connecting you and your clients or consumers. A website can provide a hub of interaction, allowing information to be garnered, data to be input or processed, and commerce to commence. A website can also showcase an idealized version of your business's intentions. What does this really mean? It means a website can take everything that you've put into your company and show it in the best light possible for the world to see.
So let's talk about the history of websites.
Sure. Well, for starters, a website is more like a piece of real estate. It lives on a server space, and it's built on the foundation of such, just as a brick and mortar business would be built on a solid land. Website has to live somewhere. After having this space established, the website itself needs to be built. And the front end of a website translates the code on the back into the visual display that is the design of the website itself. Finally, the domain host is the address at which you can locate the website. This is how users access the site and how its location can be shared. For instance, our domain address is summitbiztech.com. And now
so the history of websites. So
absolutely.
So just like fashion has had trends like bell bottoms and neon and all the other things, websites have also had trends based on technology that's available.
That's true, and technology has changed so much in such a short time. It was just back in 1991 that a British employee of CERN created the first website. And then in 1993, hypertext markup language, or HTML, was made available, which changed the landscape of website capability. Several years later, in 1996, cascading style sheets, commonly known as CSS, were invented, which allowed the field of web design to fully flourish. The next big shift didn't come until 2003 when WordPress was released, beginning a revolution in website function creation and even design. Flash forward to today, and nearly 40% of all websites are hosted on WordPress. That's over 75 million websites. Wow. And now most of us have seen these next stages of the internet throughout our lifetimes, pretty much summed up as the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. The early internet was simply forms and tables based almost entirely around text with few images. The second era brought the rich, imaginative stylings of web designers equipped with CSS and were able to penetrate the promotional markets of the world, replicating and expanding upon brand identities and campaigns of the time. You can see here the screenshot of the original Space Jam website from 1996, uses a free-form layout with a total emphasis on the whimsical outer space dimensionality. This website is actually still live and definitely worth a visit for its relic in the time capsule. Finally, we have the present era, which is somewhat restrictive in its design cues, but definitely puts form over function. Function over form, establishing a standard look and user experience, as well as the constant accessibility required in our increasingly digital mobile world.
So what is it about WordPress, Dallas, that 40% of all websites are developed using that platform? Are there distinct benefits to WordPress?
Absolutely, that's a great question. One of the biggest draws of WordPress lies in its easy editing structure. Opting for a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get approach, WordPress allows for easy editing and creation of content for both amateurs and professionals alike. Another stellar feature is the layered security WordPress makes easier than ever to implement. The job of the IT professionals like those at Summit to monitor and negate potential threats is made all the more worthwhile, valuable, and easy throughout the day because of the accumulation of efforts that WordPress provides. Also, great user accessibility means no more shared passwords or account logins. You can easily assign and manage multiple users and privileges with WordPress's user role system. Additionally, the vast library of available plugins or functional integrations allows for endless capabilities on the site itself. Each of these has helped to secure WordPress as the majority share of website platforms and greatly influenced the look and value of websites.
So let's talk a little bit about mobile friendly websites. It seems like everyone has a smartphone in their hand and is looking for goods and services on their phone.
That's true. We all know mobility is key in today's web world. Mobile access to the web has increased to 75% of the total. That's us on our tablets, phones, smart devices like watches, even some of our cars. With nearly 60% of the world online, that's over 4 billion people. It's creating an enormous push towards mobile accessibility, something that WordPress has helped to become an out-of-the-box feature with most web builders.
So let's say you have a fabulous website. How is your website found online? I have seen stuff about Google Ads and other paid for services, but how are websites generally found on the internet out of all the websites that are out there?
Absolutely, that's the tough part, right? We take our website, we add great content, we edit headings, make sure everything is secure and up to date. Now, search engines like Google, and Bing will send web crawlers to every page on your website, ranking the usability and relevance of its content. Optimizing this process is what's known as SEO or search engine optimization, and it's the process of understanding and enhancing the curb appeal of your site. So designers can use programs like Google Analytics to track user behavior, visitation, page leaping, navigation, the time spent, things of that nature. And in this is track the content value of the website itself as far as how valuable the content is to the user. This is analyzed through the web crawlers that track technical backlinks, outbound links, references made to definitive content, and whether or not these are made by trusted sites and resources from the SEO source, Google, Bing, etc. It assigns a value of viability based on all of this, and it then ranks your site amongst all others where it becomes sorted within the list of search engine results. And to go, let's see here. To go a little bit deeper, some of the things that we really look for, or the computer really looks for, is the page loading speed. So how fast does everything load? Is everything accessible in time? And again, all of these sort of play into the user experience at the end of the day, but is everything content friendly? Are the images in a proper resolution? Is the media in a proper playback orientation, and is nothing overlapping on the back end? Also, the information itself, obviously, authoring unique, rich content really helps the right users find what they are looking for. If your page has content that makes sense to what people are needing, makes sense to the way it's aligned on the back end, et cetera, that's something that Google is going to consider a worthy website. And I see a saturation. Worthy value is really key, surprisingly, and especially for something AI driven. But as well as good function, being in working order paramount, obviously, again, translates to the user experience at the end of the day. But if that web crawler can't go from one page to another, or can't find a certain page because it's disconnected from everything else, it's going to say that your website's broken and it's not worth using. It's not worth viewing. Also, as well as organic growth, which is people either loving your website or hating your website. Based on those analytics, are people staying for a long time? Are they interacting with buttons and forms? Are they scrolling through, or are they immediately clicking away? I mean, these are things to consider, and these are the things that the websites consider when promoting your website in an organic search result.
So a website is actually like the front yard to your house. Excuse me. Goodness. Should have muted my phone before we started this. I'm popular today. So you're saying that if the website is actually like the front yard to your house or your business, how often should we actually be updating our websites? Is there like an industry standard of some sort?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the state of the web is constantly changing. Expectations of web users are also constantly changing depending on the habits, what's in vogue, what's functionally appropriate. Things like Uber Eats, all of these are new things that have changed how we interact. The industry standard for these websites is 3 to 5 years. And that means taking something and turning it into something completely new to meet the expectations of today.
Like from scratch, you mean?
Like from scratch. That means
Wow.
approaching everything from a new direction. You can obviously create archived content again in a new orientation, but majority of the process would then be reorienting yourself for a new world, just for 3 to 5 years apart. Things in culture shift. But we really just recommend a refresh, which is every 1 to 2 years. And that just means you're taking your content that exists, you're changing the orientation, maybe you're changing the pattern in which it's navigated, the menu structures, you're taking some of the images, making sure everything's brand appropriate, cleaning anything up that's not clean, and creating a campaign integration, maybe creating some campaigns based around the launch itself, and making sure that heads the user experience at the website. Those keep everything fresh, and Google loves eating that stuff up because it says this website is constantly active, but still the good stuff is consistent. That rich content is unique and consistent.
So that
And
helps with SEO.
absolutely, it helps with
Mhm.
SEO. Things move at the speed of light, and everything has to constantly be updated. Then you get monthly updates, for campaigns. We recommend that every month, changing something on your homepage, keeping something active in your blogs, creating a new webinar post, a new vlog, anything of that nature that says, we're engaged, we're keeping this website active. People that want to come to this website are going to find new information. That consistency is something that those crawlers look for as well, and is something that keeps visitation high on your website in the end game.
Interesting.
Some other key points to keep in mind are the brand consistency. We're talking, colors, fonts, spacing, even things of that nature, making sure everything reflects the intention at the end of the day. And as well as the use of big buttons, easy to read forms, content, content that is actually updated and engaging will keep everything fresh. I mean, these are really the basics, but they're tried and true, and the computers love it as well.
So Dallas, this is excellent, excellent information. Do you have some before and afters for us to see?
We
I think
certainly do.
visual
Let's
is
check out
great.
the
Yeah.
visuals are great. Best for last, right? So let's start with this wonderful hardwood flooring company in Baltimore. They do some wonderful work for some very top tier clientele. Not dropping any names today, but you might be impressed. Anyway, they wanted a look that said that. They wanted to say, hey, we're here for some people that we'd like to work with another echelon, something a little better. And we're a visual company at the end of the day. So it's all about what we've done, what we can prove ourselves with, and the tonality of that experience. So, we gave a website that's a lot richer in imagery. It's a little more vertical scaled. It's very modern. It's completely mobile. The last website was not mobile at all. It has a new mobile structure that emphasizes certain elements that are de-emphasized in the web structure. The navigation is much more simplified, and there's accents of their color scheme all throughout, with some wonderful use of wood textures. Signaturehardwoodfloors.com. It's a really, really fun job.
Less
Next,
words and more pictures,
less
definitely.
words, more pictures. A
Yeah,
thousand
no,
words.
that's where it's at. Uh-huh.
That's where it's at. This next one is a real estate company that started doing a little more construction and development, and again wanted to emphasize a higher end experience in that realm. So we took a very minor website, something very shrunk down and menu based, and again put the images first, built space around it so it could breathe, and just really emphasize the work. I mean, that's what speaks. We brought in similar textures to the projects, and we gave them a consistent brand that was still kind of quirky, but definitely a little more modernized, a little more serious as well, for that construction market.
Totally different vibe.
Really different vibe. And you know
Yeah.
what? Baltimore loves it. I hear they do some great stuff. Okay, next we've got Cephali, wonderful Cephali. So they have a very content-rich website. They have a lot of people that access this content, and they are frequently updating it. So they needed something that was a new, easy-to-use database and could handle all the content that they had, spread it out, change the navigation. Again, we brought in similar branding, gave it a little modern feel, softened it up a little, and really try to create something inviting, still neutral, very neutral, and some playful brand elements, the oversized logos here and there. That kind of stuff adds a nice touch that just says like, hey, like we're with it, you know what I mean? And legibility as well at the end of the day, and mobility. Again, this one was not mobile friendly prior, so now can be viewed on any wonderful device.
And this company is, if anyone on the call is a trade organization or falls in the nonprofit realm, this is that type of industry. So you can kind of see it's less of a company that does hardwood floors or does stuff that takes a product to market, but a lot of data. So this is just a different clean layout for somebody in that industry.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. And now we have this wonderful public relations agency there. The branding was taken and it was the purple, that sort of tone of comfort and vacation, even royalty. That consistency was brought in and reflected everywhere. The last one was a little chaotic. It had a design scheme reminiscent of a few years prior. Emphasis on dynamism in the photos, exciting content, not so much on the brand honing. Excuse me, again, the impact of WordPress these days. Everything is so professional first. It's all about securing that brand, making sure it makes sense. A quick glance on the phone, you know what it is. You know what company this is.
It
So
also
there's
has a really nice, clear, large call to action in that purple box, which is
That's
key
so true. An
right
added
on
call
that
to
front
action,
page.
so simple, beautiful aesthetic, and wonderful function. It's, these simple touches can really make or break the experience. So this one's very successful, as is this next one, taking the informative heavy homepage and turning it into a dynamic experience, focusing on the lifestyle of the product and less about the life history of the product, the backstory. This is so data driven. Nobody wants to be data in their face like that. This is like just like the product. They want to eat this up with their eyes. It's just image oriented. Again, 1,000 words per picture. She's having a good time. Everyone's having a good time. I can't wait to purchase Stevia Sweet. That's what I'm getting.
And the cupcakes look great.
They do look great. They do look great.
Yeah.
So these are some of the wonderful websites that showcase some of the stuff we've been experiencing and talking about, and they themselves increase their value because of these changes. They create new content to go along with some of these, or some of these are just ported content, and again, just laid out differently and given a new home. And some are total new renditions. But yeah, so that completes our wonderful slide
What a
today. Thank you so much for
difference.
joining us. Um,
Let's look at, so we have a couple minutes for some of the questions that we have received.
Absolutely.
So let me see. Here's one. I've seen many websites that have a small picture next to the web address in the address bar. What is that? And how does it get there?
Oh, sure. That's a tough one. Most people don't know, and it's hard. It takes a little while to find out. So that's called a favicon, and yeah, that usually represents a piece of your logo or your branding, and helps identify that browser tab. Those need to be uploaded on the back end through a server file system or something simple like WordPress, but they're usually done by your web developer. So I definitely talk to whoever handles those types of processes, because it's not too difficult, but it definitely requires some familiarity with those things.
Okay, good one. Once we have our website refreshed or redesigned in WordPress, would we have to pay for small updates like picture swaps or content changes?
Oh, sure. Well, the beauty of WordPress is that you can set things up for the client to secure a functional future within the back end of that site. It creates that easy to edit structure. And especially if you have the foresight to know what kind of content you're going to need to be working with, you can set up pathways and patterns that are so simple to use. Just text, upload image, boom, it will format it how it needs to on the front end. That's all that needs to be done. And anyone who can use Microsoft Word can use WordPress as long as they have a great development team setting it up for them.
So if you had a website that had a board of directors and some folks changed on the board of directors annually, that would be something that a staff member with a little familiarity with Microsoft products could upload.
Absolutely. All it takes
Okay.
is uploading the designated file, and it would be in a pathway that would be sorted beforehand and would populate where necessary.
Okay. Here's another one. Would my website be down if I was getting a refresh or a rebuild? And how long do these take?
That's a great question. Um, Sometimes it really depends on the project. Sometimes it can be very brief. We usually aim for that, and sometimes it can be mitigated entirely. But generally, if there's a media heavy project where it's an archive of tons of files, if this is a website with hundreds of pages and just tons of content, that process it could definitely fluctuate, and that's something that we'd have to talk about prior, figure out the best way to navigate that. But it can definitely vary. That's for sure.
So if you have a ton of pages and if you have a ton of content, then it may take longer to redo your website. But if you
Exactly.
only have a couple pages, then that would obviously be a much shorter job. Are the websites down, Dallas, while you're working on them? I know you just finished one somewhat recently.
No. While working on them, they're completely live 100% of the time. And there's even the option if you're working on a new website or completely changing your website, you can have a under construction page or a mode that implements that somewhat. But generally, you just leave the old one up until the day it goes live, and then as fast as
So
possible.
with the day it goes live, is there a small window of time where the website may not be available until everything copies over and is ready to go?
Yes, that is, yes, that time can fluctuate greatly. That time can be pretty short. And again, if it's content heavy, it can take a little longer, but there are ways to navigate around that depending on user preference. We always try to make sure, here at Summit at least, that the clients are happy.
Yeah. Okay, last question. I read a lot on the news about websites that get hacked. How can I protect my website from getting hacked?
How can you protect your website from getting hacked? That's a good question. Well, it starts with having your website on a secure server. Having a secure server is paramount because no matter what you add to your website, I mean, if they're getting in that server, they're getting in backdoor ways that are beyond whatever you're using to access it. So that starts with having a secure server. Summit offers a great secure WordPress server hosting package, and that includes a physical firewall, digital locking, daily backups, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty ridiculous. And that's honestly what's necessary these days because as we've seen, organizations that we would not expect to fall prey to such attacks are constantly falling prey because everything is evolving all the time. So it's definitely
Right. So
important.
we
It's
right.
definitely
So we do
important.
have a secure WordPress hosting service. Some of you use it already. But it is nice because it is WordPress specific. On that platform, we actually do WordPress updates, which WordPress puts out updates to help with security patches and things that they find. So that's also really good service that we could talk to you about later. But the purpose of this webinar really is to just kind of talk to you about refreshes, talk to you about redesigning of your website, and show you that our web designer is good and he does good work and he's knowledgeable.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us today and attending our webinar on website curb appeal. I hope you learned something, and I know throughout this entire process I have. For attending this webinar, we are offering a 1/2 hour consultation with Dallas, who can give you some ideas on ways that you can elevate your website. We will contact all the attendees, and I took a screen capture of everyone who has attended, or anyone who watches the recording and just lets us know that you watched the recording, to schedule time with Dallas. And you want to go forward a slide, Dallas? And I just want to put a shameless plug out there for our next webinar, which will conclude our webinar series. And that is probably going to be very packed. It's the 6 cool things you can do in Teams right now. So if you have Microsoft Teams, there's lots of things you can do in Teams that you're probably not aware of because there's like a million things you can do in Teams. We are lucky to have the incomparable John J.B. Ballard, who will be teaching us these 6 things. And we hope you'll go to summitbiztech.com/webinars to sign up for that one, or you can just look for our email that'll come out later this week and you can register there. Thank you to everyone for attending and have a great rest of your week.
Take care, everyone.